quite a while, wasn't she?
Yeah, really nice. Oh, gosh.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Basting.
Here.
Bush.
Here.
Chambers.
Here.
Dahl.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Lindsay.
Here.
Stefas.
Here. Joel, did anybody sign up?
No.
Okay, anybody on the board have anything?
I do have a couple, Jeff. A party contacted me about the purchase of additional land out at elementary school. And they think, since it wasn't part of the referendum or the discussion, to do with the referendum, that the board should not be buying land to make the referendum work down there. That was their exact words. The ragweed in the old savanna, it's a giant ragweed, probably 10 feet tall, right next to the playground down there. It doesn't look very healthy for young kids. But we should either mow that or spray that or something.
Just on the other side of the fence.
Must be.
There's no passing.
It's right in the corner of where the driveway's at for the parent pickup. Yeah, the old savanna.
Yeah. There's
And it's
there's no
thick.
fence there.
It's thick throughout the old savanna. I know it's an issue, but with kids with breathing issues, it could potentially be a serious issue.
Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to approval of the minutes then. Make a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes for the regular and the special meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Dunn.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Dahl.
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Okay, update from HSR.
We have Tim and Wayne. Wayne is from R.A. Smith and Tim from HSR to give us an update.
Well, thanks for having us tonight. We do have a little bit of an agenda of what we want to cover. So just want to talk a little bit more about the existing facility. We've all been talking about the differential foundation and floor movement. We have received all of the information, the different testing and different information, and we have Wayne to really speak to it from more, just a little more detail phase. And then for those especially that weren't at the community open house, I wanted to include where we're at in some of the site planning conversations, as well as the most current floor plan and some three-dimensional images as well. So I just want to highlight some of the existing elementary, some of the facility facts, the square footages. So total about 52,000 square feet. As we started looking at it a little bit closer, 13 of the classrooms range between 725 and 750 square feet. New construction, typically classrooms at this age level, from about first grade on up, are typically between 850 to 900 square feet. Is what we would plan for a new construction. So we are making it a focus, and we heard loud and clear from a lot of the community members as well as staff to try to make sure that we accommodate as much as we can. You can start to see, it's small in here, but some of the red areas are some of the walls that we're removing, some of the selective demolition, some of the areas, how to make some of these changes. We are being very strategic on where we're making improvements to get the best value. So every kind of wall that's being removed is for purpose and making sure that we're just really utilizing the budget as much as we can. Same with the second floor. So a lot of the classrooms we're enlarging. We're taking 4 classrooms and converting to 3 classrooms. We're just enlarging it through manipulation of the existing footprint. We're keeping the structural system primarily intact, and then modifying the non-load bearing walls to make this all feasible.
Just for point of clarity, this presentation is
accessible on the school website now, Joel, is that correct? Okay,
So this is a little bit modified, but that part looks very similar.
okay, just in case people are watching you on the video and want
Yeah.
to maybe
Absolutely.
follow along.
So some of the new information, we've been talking about some of the differential movement within the facility. Even within the last week, there's been some additional movement within here. Even our first walkthrough, we noticed that there was pretty significant movement, especially for an age of facility that we wouldn't anticipate that type of movement within. We also did find that it's continuing to move. So we have made it point of conversation. We wanted to make sure that we're tracking and making it a long-term facility choice here and making sure that we're making the right improvements. If we're putting down new flooring, new finishes, new mechanical, new electrical, but not fixing the fundamental, some of the what's going on underneath the ground, you'll have the same issues potentially come up in the future. So what we want to do is go through an incremental process, and if you've been part of some meetings, we've talked about this quite a bit. We wanted to do some investigation. We really wanted to document what was there. So thank you for all the folks that I talked to. There was a lot of good knowledge of what happened when the additions were built, when movement occurred. So really reviewed that with a lot of the staff. We did our own field verification. We reviewed all the documents that we could have. So thank you for tracking down all those documents. That was really helpful to review the original documents from the 60s as well as the addition documents in the mid-90s. Basically what we're looking at is what's going on underneath the ground. Being that we can't have x-ray vision, we wanted to get a better understanding underneath there. We also went through a floor flatness study. I can pass around kind of the final result of that. Looks like a topographic map of the interior. So the red areas are the high points of the floor. What that really did was really accurately studied, and there's two copies there if you want to just pass them around. It really helped us to analyze in a quantitative way where the movement's happening. We also studied the walls, make sure the walls weren't moving, that the walls were on our plumb. So it was actually done by our Smith with a 3D scan of the facility, so very accurate type of information. The other part that we went through was a series of geotechnical explorations. What that is basically trying to find the soil conditions underneath the floor. We did interior and exterior core samples to get that. Second, once we compiled all that information, we basically reviewed it, we collected it, we brought together quite a few members to try to find the cause, and then also obviously the recommendation of what we're proposing to do. So I want to include some existing images. You probably noticed these. You see some movement in between the two different floor slabs. So this is entering one of the classrooms. You see the threshold. You see this is a another picture for the first there, but the tiles are movement. There's movement happening within the facility. It's been a conversation, and when we started to really put it all together was that a lot of the movement started happening after the building addition was done to the facility. And that was a key factor in a lot of these conversations of really leading us to the solution. So you see in the corner there, just some movement within there. Movement in all buildings there is always movement. It's within tolerances though. And there's in our opinion, more excessive movement. If you walk down the main corridor, you can feel a little crown down the middle of the corridor itself. So we anticipated that fundamentally there were some soil conditions that need to be studied a little bit further. So we started looking at the exterior as well, started looking at some of the stormwater on the site, how water is moving. Water is very important to making sure that you get it away from your building. And that's equally true for making sure that you have good soil conditions under your facility. What we did find was that water has been basically pooling against the facility and really not a way for the water to go around the facility or move around. Before the building addition was built, there was a natural way for the water to basically divert around the facility. That is a key characteristic. When the facility was built, the addition early 90s, you can see that slope of that ramp. Basically it basically pooled the water at that point around the facility. You can see staining on the side of the wall, and then you can see a crack along the wall as well, where water is basically going underneath the foundation. So that's what we can see from pictures. So we wanted to basically look underneath the ground. All projects, we always do geotechnical, basically soil borings during the stage of the process. We did more borings here than we would normally do at this stage. We did the exterior borings on the left, so we did 16 exterior core samples, and then we did 10 interior core samples. And I can send around the full report from what those basically said, but we'll give kind of a recap here as well. So this is what each of the borings, they did a log within there. So they showed what this is their interior boring. So they went down 6 feet for the interior borings. They had to hand auger these underneath there. So you'll see the concrete, you'll see the different soil conditions underneath the building. And what we're trying to see is some of the capacities of those. When we start seeing the clays within there, it starts to raise a few more questions as well. The floor flatness, studying for these.
And that was hit at 2 feet?
It varies, and maybe we'll get into a little more detail here as well throughout there. So this is just an image of the same study kind of going around there, showing where there's some movement within the floor slab itself. Maybe I'll turn it over to Wayne here and kind of give a little more detail, I guess, of what some of those borings found.
Okay, can we just go back into the borings then?
Yep.
Thanks, Mitch. Yep. So, like Tim said, we'll often do borings. We're adding a building on just to see what our capacities are, if there's anything we have to worry about as far as poor soils or underground sinkholes and that kind of stuff. So this is not uncommon, a little more than normal, but we'd often do this. We go inside a building, we don't do that very often because this is a special case we went in there. It's hand augered, so you can't go as deep as you can with a drill rig. So they investigated down 6 feet to think what they could do with this equipment they had. If you look at obviously the site has a pretty severe hill to the north, kind of flattens out at the building site and continues down to the south. The borings, if you look at the borings to the north, the bedrock is right along that hillside. It's coming right on down. So when you see the ground, at the ground level, the rock is only 3 or 4 feet beneath that point. So this side of the building, the foundation's holding it up. We're probably sitting on rock. Above the rock is the clay, and the clay is our concern. As you come under the building, we saw with these borings inside, you can see the rock kind of keep dropping away as they go to the hillside. The rock is getting lower, and on top of that is a layer of this clay. And then there's fill, because they keep your floor flat, and then they bring dirt in to make the building flat. So you're digging away on one part of it to put the footings in, then you're filling the other part of it to raise it up so your building's flat, the floor is flat. So there's a couple of things that worked against this site to begin with, because you're building on partially on rock, partially on a fill, because it's hard to make dirt in place as stable as a rock would be. Then we have the clay in there. In the 60s, we don't know how well they took the clay out, if they worried about it too much, or if they just kind of threw dirt in there and let it be. So we're not sure how much clay they took out. Except from those corings, we can see a pretty good seam of clay inside there. And it's a clay it's called a fat clay, where the clay, when it gets wet, it expands. A lean clay, we're thought of a seed in our property, is a clay that doesn't expand.
Yeah, and then I saw some of your samples had 53% moisture content.
Yes.
That's extremely high.
Yes, it is. So
That would cause more heaving, wouldn't it, with the weather changes, and especially when it's so close to the surface, from what I read here.
that's correct. When a fat clay gets wet, it expands quite, almost like the effect of frost heat. Same idea,
Right.
it'll lift everything up. Which was our first thought, what we saw in these two rooms here, the doming of the center of those rooms, like 2 to 4 inches. And that's that red area on that color graphic, the scan graphic that Tim passed around. So our first thought was that this was kind of like the soil was expanding, the clay was expanding and pushing up on the floor and causing the floor to rise up. Some of the borings down the corridor, it looks like they've actually, after it rose up, looks like they grouted it, almost like pavement lifting. We got some more extra concrete in there to keep it solid. So that was our first concern or thoughts, that there was this clay was the challenge, but there's also the potential that because we are getting water, if there was no water, we wouldn't have this problem. So we assume there's water getting in there, and then the next question is, was water also moving that dirt around and causing some, I would say sinkholes, loose spots to develop? So when you get loose spots, you also get some of the floor slab to settle, and some of the walls will move, and some of the cracking will happen. So
Is that similar to like wormholes in a sense, where you're getting areas that are more pushed aside with water movements so that there's actually nothing occupying that space?
yeah, if you had an underground pipe, a drain,
Yeah.
whether it's plumbing to your house, a lateral, or, yeah, if water, if you had a leak around the tongue and the belt on your drain pipes, same thing, the water would kind of wash away, and slowly
Sure.
it develops a little cavity.
Mhm.
Other soil and dirt can fall into it, and then everything above it kind of settles into it, and you get this compounded movement. So there's a chance we have two different things going on here. We can't see until we get in there. We have the clays, we know we're probably expanding because they were so wet. We also may have some soils being washed out because the water is coming down this hill, going down underneath the building and coming out this side. Is that it? Any
Yeah.
questions? Anything more?
Yeah, so I guess, we fundamentally kind of, it's a two-prong, it's caused by water itself, and then basically that clay within there. What we want to do is basically remove both those things. We want to remove the water and remove the clay. Being that this building is fully occupied, that's easier said than done. One of the main reasons, other than some of the educational advantages that we had to put in the addition where we're showing it, was actually put an addition in that location. We can very easily make sure that there's no water going underneath the foundation. We can do a proper site drainage, we can get the water away from there in the first place, and then making sure that it basically stays dry. And we also want to make sure that that clay is fundamentally removed. Interesting enough, when they did the 90 addition, they did remove the clay. They brought in proper fill and packed it down and made sure that the proper carrying capacities. So we could see that through some of the reports itself.
Would that old job meet the current standards of 3,500 PSF, pounds per square foot? With the old job?
You mean this 1960s piece with the vent that?
Right.
I'm not the person to answer that question.
Okay.
But with the bedrock there, they probably figured, well, the bedrock and the rock on top of that is pretty strong. They may not have anticipated the impact of the clay at that time.
Right.
There's a test report that came through that said they had trouble compacting the soil because it was so wet. So that could have been a sign at that time that they had a wet condition when they were trying to do the building foundation work.
So I understand you would dig this all out and then put some sort of compressible fill that would meet the standard required, this 3,500 pound per square foot.
Soil we would remove in the classroom area. It doesn't have to be to that 3,500.
Oh, it doesn't?
It's only holding up a floor slab. The bearing capacity in there is more for our foundation for building supports, not columns and walls. So we don't necessarily need to meet that 3,500 just for the soil. We just want something that we can compact and it'll stay compacted.
I see.
A little different requirements there. And CGC will help us with that design for that.
So the walls are primarily non-load bearing throughout the entire area that we're talking about. So there's a column structure within there. So removing the walls, they're basically just partitions at that point. However, those partitions, those CMU walls are sitting on top of the slab. So if we remove the slab, we're removing the wall, which means we're basically starting over in that space. New electrical, and we were planning a lot of those elements anyways, so now is a good time to be having this conversation. But we're basically going to have to go down to the foundation level, to that clay, remove it, and then replace it with suitable fill in that area.
Okay, what's preventing them non-loaded bearing walls not to fall over?
A masonry wall can stand up vertically on its own, especially when it's inside, there's no wind on it, quite well. At this time, it's tied in at the corners, although we have cracking in some corners, not all the corners.
Because that one is kind of coming this way, the recent one.
You'll see at the ceiling grid, it's kind of broken. The ceiling grid is not moving this way, it's broken, it's kind of bent upward, not outward. So in that case, between the ceiling grid and the walls in the corners, that wall is staying vertical. But that's why we'd like to definitely make sure that people are aware that if something else does move, like last week, that we're brought on board to look at it again in case something is moving again. Right now, everything's vertical, and the movement's been really this way.
What caused the acceleration last week to that extent?
Brick, block, and concrete are very brittle materials, so they can't move a lot until they snap. So unlike paper or steel, which you kind of bend and work back and forth and bend up and bend down and be okay, a little loose, but okay. Block would do that very little, and it gets to a point it just snaps. And that's what I think happened here. It was, the other side's been repaired once already in room 106. The same location has already been repaired, Mark.
In this room, there's almost a identical match to that same cracking along the grout lines. This is Mrs. McGuire's classroom.
So when they repaired this one, they did not repair this side, they just looked at it from one side and said, let's grout this up and caulk it. But then this other side gave way, as once again, more water.
So in your opinion, that could happen in 2 different spots at this, over the same 4 days? We could have upwards of 1.5 inch movement on that wall.
The movement's not that great. And the movements can be a little bit, once it breaks, it'll go boom like that. So it might have been, over the course of years, 1.5 inches of stress that would have developed once upon the crack, it would go to the natural new position. But it was actually kind of hanging up on itself for a while until that actually went.
And then to Tony's concern, with them walls, in your opinion, are safe?
Those walls are safe. Yeah, I would not bang on them. I would not, lean equipment against them or leaning, flags stuff are fine, but unless something else is noted, I'm sure they're safe.
Is the upper level, did you guys do the scan, the level?
We scanned the upper level, and that's also there.
It is.
It's not perfectly flat. There's nothing that's perfectly flat. The joists and the beams, all the framing has a little camber and deflection to it. But the difference upstairs in the floor elevation was plus or minus 2 inches from low to high, and that's okay across that cycle space.
Is the center higher or lower in the upstairs?
In the upstairs, the center is lower because your beams deflect. So it's actually the opposite.
And you don't think them columns, them steel columns in the center of that building are compromised because of the settling or rust?
There's no rust.
Subgrade.
Or subgrade.
Below the floor, into the foot.
If you look at this, first floor, right? This lower level pattern, the lines along where the bearing walls are, they're basically right at the base elevations that we anticipated they would be.
Okay.
And it's only the spaces in the middle where you have this upward movement. The walls do not support, they don't even touch the floor above. So those walls can be removed in the floor above.
I understand, and I seen that today when I was down there. But there is movement in the upper walls also, on the top floor. Significant in one spot, on an exterior wall.
Is that in the same corner here?
It is down,
This is 91 building, this is the 60s.
it's either in,
I think which page was page
is either Page Grimm's
on
or
the end?
it was on the south side.
If you're in one of them.
Part of this is we did some sampling of the existing building. However, part of the recommendation, you'll see actually if you, in the full report, they'll call it unconclusive. Part of the reason why it's unconclusive is until it's fully removed, we're still speculating. We are still anticipating what we're going to find. So what we are anticipating is that we're going to have to remove that. Will there be any modifications to any particular columns? Possibly. And I think that'll be a further verification at that point.
And I understand that there will be a lot of questions answered once you guys start the project, but we have 350 4-year to 12-year-old kids going in there in a week. And you guys need to promise us with 100% certainty, not 99.5% certainty, 100% certainty that that building is safe for them kids. Because if there's an issue, a wall falls, a chunk of cement falls out, injures or kills a kid, the school will get sued out of existence. And then you know where they'll come next? Right at this table. Right at this table.
What we're talking about is long-term solutions. We're talking about fixing the problem. We don't anticipate it's catastrophic. It's not at that.
And I'm not saying that it is, but when we get an email a week ago today with pictures that really look disturbing, very disturbing. I didn't see the pictures up here. That's very concerning to me.
The pictures, we actually on Thursday look at that, and the picture that you saw last week was a picture from this classroom to that wall. That picture is already the same on this wall. The wall has already moved that much in the past.
Is that where the panel is at? Where was the panel damaged?
The panel damage is here.
Okay.
Well, that's what I have a question on, the panel members of, it's like, you know, okay, I went down there, you know, I know. What's holding that up? Like, is it steel beams on the end?
That panel is jammed between the floor and the steel beam above.
There's a steel beam
It's not
above.
hanging from the beam. There's a
Right, I know.
there's a 2x4.
Okay.
The 2x4 stud wall. There's no track.
Okay.
It's not a movable partition. It's a metal partition or a, whatever, 1 inch. It's a material partition. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and it's nailed to a stud triple wall about 8 tall. That's attached to the beam.
I'm just wondering what was holding that. If that panel would fall, it would still be up. That section would still be up. It wouldn't fall in. If the panel itself fell.
Yes, no, correct, yeah. Yeah, 'cause there's a beam right above that, which is holding up the second floor.
How many of the board have actually seen and walked through and witnessed the settling recently since last Monday?
I was there 2 weeks ago, does that count?
I mean, I'd be up for a short recess just to take Kevin and, or Tim and Wayne down there, and we can walk through it. Take an hour. We got a short agenda tonight. And if there's questions and concerns, I mean, I really want this thing to be comfortable with me before next Monday.
Is this something you guys have already seen?
Yeah.
That was
That's
your
my understanding.
Yep.
Okay.
We saw this latest movement. Within there.
So the movement of this little pier here, little masonry block wall, is movement that was there before. It was repaired already. It moved a little further, and therefore it cracked again. It's not like a new movement, it's just an expansion of previous movement. And that's the one that caused the partition wall to drop, because it couldn't go anywhere. So it kind of jammed in that space.
The movement I got on my phone here, I just want you to look at it, Wayne, and see what you think. This is down low in a corner. So there is horizontal separation between the cinder block. It has been repaired, filled in with caulk or crack filler. And then we'll go back, and this next picture will be above it. And this is at on the upper level. It looks very fresh to me. It hasn't been, whenever the room was painted last, I guess, it's happened since. See, it's things like this that I had no idea until I went down there this morning.
And I can't speak for that without.
I know, I understand.
More specifics.
I understand.
There's a lot of movement going on in the building, and we know that. And there's going to be, if you look at these walls here already, you see little cracks in the grout joints, which you may not even notice, except now we're looking for them. So I was looking at them going, oh yeah, there's one. That's because you're looking for it. Those are more substantial. They probably would have been noticed if they were there before. I can't remember if I looked at those last time I was in town, or the winter or not.
A majority of the cracks have been filled in with paint or some type of crack filler.
the painting of these rooms was 4 or 5 years ago, Roger? So those could have been happening in the last 4 or 5 years.
But I believe there's been recent painting and filling in of cracks since 4 or 5 years ago.
And let me say
Some of them could have been painted as early as last year, but most of them in that area have been 4 or 5 years. We paint rooms when there's a request that they think they're fading, we'll go and paint a room. So they are not all on the same time frame. And that one room that, that was touched up, that was touched up within the last 2 years, where that caulking and stuff is. I talked to Steve about that last week when we were down there.
I think a different way to ask this question, and I know you're talking about the solution being long-term, but I think what we want to be confident in is that going into this school year, is the problem escalating to a critical point? Or, in your guys' expert opinion, do you feel like that this is a problem that's been slowly worsening over time, but is still, in the grand scheme of things, in a stable situation, even though we're seeing recent changes? Yeah, can you speak to that?
Yeah, the movement we are seeing is not what I would, none of the, I've seen nothing that says that the columns are an issue in old buildings sinking. These are walls that are not structural, so if they fall, there's a challenge if they fall at the wrong time, it's a bad thing. I don't see them falling, given the conditions now, what we've seen. Once again, they snapped, they're stable again. But I do request that we just keep an eye on it. I'm not going to say that it's not going to have a 10-inch rainstorm next week, Tuesday, and change the equation. But I'm going to say that as it sits right now, we're good to start the school year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you two had elementary students in Middle Point that were going to go to school, would you send them to school next week?
Yes.
I mean, I know your recommendation is kind of keep an eye on it. I mean, are there any kind of structural, like temporizing measures that could reinforce the spots that we feel like are most problematic?
Yeah.
Just so we don't have,
There are things you
material
can do to say,
falling.
let's brace this wall up. And then you're going to have a system of channels in the wall in your room that'll kind of keep the wall in place from floor to ceiling, from floor to floor above. That'll be there. That is something that could be done. I don't think you need to do that.
Okay.
But there are things you can do to kind of keep it in place.
You could also put, one of the recommendations within there is put sensors within there, secret wall movement sensors as well, to basically sense any small movement within there that's maybe not noticeable. Being that we're going to be starting construction in, better part of 6 to 9 months here, is that investment wise? I don't know, but that could, you could have sensors on there that could be added as a precautionary factor as well. I don't think it will give us much more information than what we currently have, because we know there's movement, and then we know that there's continued movement. That's not the question. So.
Well, in one of the rooms, it works out good because the teacher has the whiteboard on the affected wall, and the kids are sitting near the other end of the room, so majority of the time the kids are away from that wall. And if we could do something simple like that, just keep the kids away from the wall as much as we can.
I'll make a recommendation to the teacher to say, if you have a sitting area for reading, move it to the side of the room.
Right. Or the
Simple
kindergarten,
things like that.
I don't know, the kindergarten kids nap nowadays or not, I should know that.
I would venture to say before it became to a point where it could fall over, you'll see additional signs that there's additional movement happening. So before that wall would fall over and cause a potential issue, you'll see additional movement, and you'll have some warning.
I understand it's unusual to have a conversation like this, but that is something that we can do without any sensors, without any bracing,
Yep.
to take away some of the potential danger.
I got a question on the borings. I didn't quite get the picture completely, and nobody will anyway, but there were some of the borings where clay was hit pretty quickly, and it was it all the way down completely 6 feet or 8 feet? I thought I read on 1 or 2 of those, or 3.
Yeah, the borings in
That's pretty.
this
deep.
line here, this is the line that's right between these two rooms. Hi, these two rooms right here.
Yeah,
There's this line of borings right here, this number 3 line of borings. And if you were to follow that line, this D3, which is right outside the building, you hit the clay right away.
Yeah.
And then 3.5 feet down, you hit rock. So the footing's there, it's not very deep, and it's sitting on rock already. Then as you pass through the building and you get to this one on the outside, it's all fill, clay and the rock are 10 to 12 feet down.
okay. So that was the one that had the 6 feet down was still clay?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I thought I read, that one of them had at least clay initially, and then all the way through the core sample.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
It's
So
not
so
uncommon.
my question leads to the thing that means more excavation, right? The more clay, the more excavation.
Yep, that's the vein I'm trying to find.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not uncommon for undisturbed sites to have that level of,
Variation.
variation
Yeah.
there, especially on a hillside like this.
Yeah, and if you read the reports from CGC as well as the previous study for the 1990s edition, they're very specific about this location is this location only, especially in this kind of a hillside. It could be a, cavernous cutout in the rock.
Yeah, so is the fill similar to bentonite? I see you put bentonite in the holes. I mean, what's the composite of the fill that you put in? What is that?
Are you asking to fill the holes?
No, once you excavate the clay, you use bentonite, I see on the testing site.
They just do that to make sure the hole stays plugged. There's no rock popping up in dust.
Gotcha.
There's basically, the generic term is engineered fill.
Oh,
It'll be a blend of fines and larger aggregate. There'll be a layer that allow water to go through if it gets to like when the pavement or the slab is dry and that kind of stuff.
sure.
But it'd be very compactable, very tight when it's done like rolled bed material.
And typically what happens during a process like this, there's third-party testing agent, independent of the contractor, independent of all of us, that basically verifies that it's done properly, that writes the report and says, yes, it's suitable to put the new slab on top of that itself. Because we are just taking samples of this area. They have the advantage of once it's all open, you can exactly see what's there.
Yeah, and if they find something, they'll give us a call and say.
So it's as common as, on the bid form, the way I was include a unit price for fill. The reason we do that is it's variable on bid day. So it's a competitively bid then, and we can adjust the quantity. We know there's going to be some, what we don't know is the amount. So we fine tune it through unit pricing.
I got you.
Do you expect to remove the floor, of course, of the affected rooms and the hallway, and on the north side then, Tim and Wayne?
I think really those 4 areas we're planning on removing the entirety.
The entire-
What we'll do is we'll remove the floor side of the worst area first, so we have an understanding of what we believe is going on, and then we'll move to the other areas as well.
Okay.
What we want to make sure is that we truly do correct it, we correct the soil conditions, and then we fundamentally correct the water underneath there as well.
You said that the problem is mainly contained to those 4 classrooms. Is that based on your 3D analysis showing it generally flat in the other part of the facility?
It's based on observation, so it's based on where you can
Where
see.
the cracking and heaving is? And okay, gotcha.
And when we saw what areas were the core of the problem was the areas we focused the 3D scanning on. So we're not saying that everything east or west of that is perfect, but this was definitely the roughest area.
And knowing, we had the reports from when the 90 edition was built, we knew what that was sitting on, so there was less variable there. Here, we just be in the air of the building and just limited documentation, there were some more unknowns within there.
We did not core sample the new addition interior.
There was really no need.
No need to. Okay. All right.
And just to be clear, if there's whatever foundation you're not gonna mess with, even if there is some clay in there or something that could absorb moisture, as long as we're diverting all remaining water away from the facility, then the foundation will remain dry and won't absorb moisture and change.
It's a belt and suspender approach. So we're both fixing the water conversation and fixing the soil conditions underneath the facility. So it's, could we just fix the water condition and level the slab? Possibly, I don't want to roll the dice.
I guess I'm just-
The challenge with trying to stop the water is because you do have a rocky hillside. Water will run right along the top of the rock,
Right.
squeeze between the rock and the concrete footings. You could still get into the interior of the building. So we do want to get as much of the clay out as we can, so that any water that does leak in through the foundation system, or through the footing underneath the bedrock level, because water, in this kind of rock we have, water can go through the layers of rock and still get into the underside.
I guess what I'm asking is, I'm not asking about the foundation you're planning on remediating, it's maybe the foundation that seems stable right now, even if there's clay in that foundation, that is stable as long as it stays dry. Is that correct?
But they also made provisions on the soil conditions. So through the reports, we found that the bearing capacities of those walls were appropriate. And so we don't anticipate any conversations there. So by building the addition here, you know, it's very similar when in the 90s when they built the addition. There wasn't an issue until they built the addition. Will we be causing an issue by building an addition here? That's where the belt and suspenders comes from, is trying to make sure that we do this all properly and that we have proper checks and balances throughout the entire process to make sure that doesn't happen.
And I think to answer your question, they removed clay in the 90s edition. They removed clay and put different materials in place of the clay.
Right, the 90s edition is in good shape, I
Right.
got that, okay.
Yep.
But we're not remediating the entire foundation of the original building, original footprint.
Yeah, because there's more than 4 rooms in the original building.
Correct. So we're basically in the core of the building where where we see the movement itself.
How do we know that's not going to happen?
Right,
Some
so
of the-
that's
So your concern is everything to the
Yes.
west over there?
correct. Can we be confident that if this core foundation is remediated and the water redirected, that the entire site is going to be as stable as it can be for the next 30 to 50 years?
Well, you haven't seen troubles at the previous 50 years in those areas.
Then you probably won't.
Yeah, and then
As long as it
the
stays
new
dry.
addition is going to redirect the water away from it, and that's already got, now you have this part of the building that is already protecting this lower part down here. So the drainage up here is different, it's going around down the street, it's coming out this way, and actually it's coming dumped in here, and not getting anywhere.
Lots of collecting there.
Right.
It is very much collecting. And we're picking up a lot of the neighborhood water as well.
There is drains off the roof that run down under
Yeah,
the
there's a-
foundation. I mean,
There's a
could
rough
that be
drain right there,
Potential?
which we will look at when we do this exploration later on.
Yes, there's potential of that further introducing additional water.
The cast iron pipe
Yeah.
rotting,
That is
all right.
we do see that.
The movement in the walls upstairs, again, some of it's been repaired, some of it's been masked over. Will we address that, or is that's not part of this discussion?
We can walk through that and make notes when we're going into design phase, see what's happening, because some of that's going to be reconfigured anyway, under the new floor plan. So we'll see what's impacted, what's not impacted.
Okay. Nobody's interested in taking a little tour? I mean, I've asked once, I'll ask one more time, that'll be it.
I didn't know, so.
I don't mind I don't mind scheduling it later this week before Monday if we feel like it's important. I feel like I've seen the heaving and the settling, and I'm sharing your concerns. I just don't feel like I need to actually be there again to hear an expert's opinion on what to do about it and how confident they are in the state of it.
And I think they've
Unless
been
you
there
feel
too,
like
recently.
there's areas that are of major concern that these guys haven't seen yet. And if you feel like
Well, I'll
that's
tell
the
Tim
case.
where it's at, and he'll go, Tim and Wayne to look at it the next time they're down there, for sure.
So when Larry's talking about the roof floor and cracks and stuff, we're not going to remodel this elementary school and then walk into a room and have a cracked wall. That was paving over. If we're spending $11.9 million. So we're going to have a beautifully remodeled downstairs. We'll go upstairs and walk into a room, and I still see that crack over in the corner.
Yeah, so quite a
That
few.
what's going to happen?
No, because quite a few of the walls are being removed through the room configuration as well. So part of the reason why you're seeing cracks in the first place is because of their masonry walls. They're not load-bearing masonry walls that just show everything. They show
They're stacked bond, they're not
Correct.
tied at the corners, they're just one stacked bond up against another stacked bond. So there's a lot of independent movement that's happening.
So we'll, what we want to do is make it look like you made a significant investment like you are doing. Will every crack be corrected? Will every movement? It is still a 1960s era facility.
To get back to your point, that my concern level was very minimal up until last Monday,
Mhm.
when I seen the movement that we see. If it was on my farm, it's not that big a deal with
I get you.
farm stuff.
I get you. But I think if Wayne had,
Cows on the other end of the building.
I mean, if they had gone there and seen that, you know, because I got pictures and, you know, I know what we're talking about. And I feel like if you guys hadn't seen what we're talking about, then we would have a disconnect on what they're giving their opinion on that.
To see that movement that happened while the timing was kind of impeccable, we know there was movement, and it was significant enough movement to cause those type of conversations to happen. That's why we wanted to put the priority level that we did on it from day one of this, because we did anticipate those things to continue to happen.
And we get some more heavy rains, you can see more of that.
Yeah, it's hard to say, you know, I was told we had 5 inches of rain the week before this happened. And we can't say that it doesn't cause an effect directly. It's just coincidence, you don't know.
It shouldn't.
Unless that roof drain in that building there has a leak. There's things that we don't know yet.
And that's why we really are recommending, because we could do a partial removal, but I think in the nature of this, we want to do a full removal of that slab. And we can really uncover a lot of things at that point. Maybe things that we can't anticipate at this point.
Larry, and it depends on what on your farm you move. If your growing leg moves 2 inches, it's going to move.
If the house moves and the kids are in the house.
Well, I'm just-
That's more important than, yeah.
So, even in new construction, you do see movement. You see movement on walls, you see cracking. That's a normal part of construction. It's to this level and to this extent that we're looking at.
Have you had experience with this kind of movement, Wayne and Tim, in projects in the past?
You're looking at older buildings?
Older buildings.
50-year-old buildings?
Yeah.
All the time. It's the age of the building, and some more than others will reflect this kind of movement. This movement is a little more severe than we might see in a building that we're going into to remodel or repurpose. The question about do you fix every crack in the building, you're chasing your tail then, because every crack's going to become a different, you're going to be all over the place. You kind of draw your line.
It's the same reason, you know, what didn't happen in this facility in this era of construction is they don't have movement joints. We have control joints that are very specified. We have movement joints that are very specified now. That's all to allow buildings to actually move and shift over time. We don't recommend a stack bond for obvious reasons that we recommend running bonds. So there's things that we do now that just weren't happen there. So some of these things we can't affect. However, it doesn't make it unsafe.
And you shared with me last week when we were there, and Roger and Steve were both there, about the movement has been happening for quite some time, and that some of this is just another release of the stress of the movement, that it's just moved to another spot in the building, and it's another stress release. Is that right? Isn't that what you shared with me?
Yes, that is. Everything, even a new building that's, you know, clean slate, sitting in the ground, as that building sits there, the ground is settling beneath the weight of the building. And you hear that in a new building or a new house, you get those little cracks over your doorways, and that's really what that is. That's what's happening here. It's just accelerated since the 90 addition was put on, and it's just getting to a point now, and as you guys are looking at it, it's getting, I don't want to say it's getting to the end of its life, it's getting that age quicker than it would have normally if it was on a fast site.
Is this a good time to ask whether this remediation is going to be within budget?
So I knew that would come up. And I would expect that to come up. So yes, this isn't what we were anticipating. So the remediation is to remove the floor sap and to remove that soil. That was what we were anticipating within here. So I anticipate we can keep moving forward with the scope that we're showing. A lot of the costs will actually come in with being that's an occupied building, and that it's when we do this soil removal, easy if it's new construction, very difficult being in existing conditions. We have a lot of associated mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, flooring. You have a lot of associated work just to be able to get at that type of scope, and that's really where the costs are going to come in. The good thing is we were planning on removing a lot of those anyways, so now is definitely the time to be having the conversation. So I think it's within what we were planning. To pin a number on it, we'll never be able, because it basically involves every trade on here. I don't know if I'll ever be able to put a true number to it, but I anticipate that we're heading in a good direction. The other question that a natural follow-up is kind of a scheduled conversation of how to achieve this type of scope. So we do anticipate this is work that will take longer than a summer time period, especially with some variables of when we open it up, there's going to have to be some further analysis at that point. It could go quick, however, we want to plan for a worst case scenario in this case in particular. So we do anticipate it lasting longer than a summer time period. And being that we're doing a building addition like this, one option would be to build the building addition first, stay out of basically the existing part, and then to move grade or move some kiddos into either the new library, even into the new gym temporarily while this work is happening, to basically pick up a few critical months is what we're really looking for to be able to do this type of scope. If another option would be maybe not financially as incentivized, but temporary classrooms could be another option. Moving a grade level up to here could be another option as well. But I think probably more importantly, we want to make sure that we have a schedule and time to do this appropriately, to make sure that we can truly investigate it when it is removed as well.
When do we make a decision on that?
I think it's going to be a continued part of the conversation. We would want to know that before construction starts, because another option would be you do this area first. The advantage of doing it first would be that it's a variable that we know is fixed. We know the exact cost of it at that point. We can keep moving forward. However, that would displace the kiddos in there for a certain time period. It's amazing what contractors can do. We give them a lot of credit, especially knowing this. It's a relatively isolated area, so you can get a big crew and get a lot of work in place done. However, 3 months goes pretty quick. And the advantage of doing it first would be you eliminate that variable up front. You also have better access to the site. The grades would naturally want to have an opening on the north side to get that amount of fill in and out of the building. It's a little more difficult to run that on the southern side, like would have to be done if the addition was built first. It's not unheard of. We've done a lot of these type of projects during. Very accustomed to kind of remodeling like this during occupied spaces. We just want to make sure that the timeline is appropriate.
Do you feel like if things go according to plan, you can remain on schedule? And then if things, as far as this remediation,
yep.
If you run into problems, it's going to extend out, then you're going to have maybe 1, 2, 3 months, you're going to have to put 4 classrooms worth of kids at least?
We could plan it that way as well. Plan it to accomplish it over the summer time period, the first summer or the second summer, because we really do have 2 summers that we can have this conversation. And you could plan for that, then have a backup plan or a plan B if it does take more time. That would be a viable option as well. Part of the challenge is when we do the structural work, there's a lot of associated electrical, there's a lot of associated, you put down a slab, it needs time to cure. You can't put down the floor on top of a cured slab. So you end up spending quite a bit of money to actually make it so you can put down flooring on a cured slab type of conversation. Anything is doable. However, the shorter we compress that timeline, the more expensive it will get.
Well, what we risk by putting the addition on first is if we spend $8 million putting the addition on, and we run into some major problems in the existing, then what do we do? So we gotta fix the existing one, and if we have to cut back on the addition, we do.
We'll know, we'll bring it certainly, bid day, where the numbers all shake out as well. So I don't think we'll be at risk of not completing the project. We would recommend maintaining the contingency throughout the process. This is just any project has, once you get out of the ground, there's some risks that are in. So I think we want to maintain the contingency, but as long as we're within that. It is a contained area, and that is something to definitely note. It's not the entire footprint. Grand scheme of things, this is a pretty small area. The facility is about 52,000 square feet. It's just not a huge facility to start off with either. So in the grand scheme of things, so that's the good thing is it's in a relatively small area that we're talking about.
The contractors would come to the table with some great ideas too that we may have thought about or have a timeline that we would not imagine. You know, skid steers and conveyor belts out to a truck out back and they're just hauling it away on a truck every hour. You don't know what you can do. Surprises us.
Yeah, we did have a similar conversation even at Dodgeville with infilling the boiler room. So that was infilled almost 8 feet within there. And that was accomplished over the summertime period, all of that renovation. They ended up working basically around the clock to make that happen.
Well, excuse my concern, but this looks really extensive, and I'll be amazed if you fix the problems inside that old elementary school.
It is extensive. I don't think we have ever said it wasn't extensive.
Yeah, I know.
But it's about planning it properly and going forward. I don't think it's at the point where we're talking about removing the building or removing the building in entirety. There's still a lot of life to that facility.
Again, to alleviate some of my concern, I would like to have a representative of our insurance company just walk through and have either Tim or Wayne there to show them the concerns, and so our insurance company can sign off on it before school starts.
I spoke to our insurance representative, and because this is a settling that happens over time, there's nothing that the insurance company will do for us. If this were a sudden thing, if it was a tornado that came through and did damage, or if it was, a water main break that caused sudden flooding, then the insurance company would be a part of those kinds of
And
things.
just a letter from the insurance company stating exactly that, Mitch.
Okay.
What about somebody from, an inspector from, the state inspector from the DPW?
Another great idea.
And I know that if the board would write a letter to the superintendent within 30 days, they can come and inspect the facility. Or it can be written by a community member too if they wanted to.
We do have a new state inspector now too.
No.
So we have a new gentleman.
Tony, to understand that statement, the DPI will send someone at your request, at the superintendent request?
If the board or Mitch would write to the superintendent,
They would
within
send.
30 days, they would send somebody.
Oh, I understand. Okay. No charge of taking from the state property.
No charge.
That I saw.
You can direct me, it's not an action, you can direct me to do that.
What do you think of that idea, Wayne?
It could be a can of worms, but if you're comfortable with it, you don't know what they're gonna seek, you don't know what they're gonna recommend.
Roger, what do you think?
I don't like inspectors, but, like I said,
Yeah,
they're gonna send an engineer. These guys are engineers, I mean, that's what they're gonna send. I mean, that's who the inspectors are. So unless they've had plenty of experience, in this type of situation, they might or might not have seen the situation. Tony probably knows more about it than I do at that level. But they're in, I mean, that's what you're gonna get as an engineer, and at the comfort level, I mean, there's no cost. I don't think it's gonna slow down the project any. You know, we can keep going. But
Some of the inspectors are architects, not personal.
Yeah.
And contractors as well.
I understand.
It-
But they got background in building as well.
Yeah. It's whether, it all depends on their qualifications.
What I think what Tony was asking for was somebody to put their stamp of approval on it, saying it's a safe building for 9 months for us.
I don't know if they would do that. They may request you get an engineer that looks at it and gives you a stamp letter.
Is that letter that you sent us a stamped official letter?
I didn't stamp that, I just sent an email.
You just sent me an email, and I forwarded that on to all the board members.
Is it
I'm
possible?
comfortable enough to write a short little letter with my stamp on it.
Whenever we submit a set of plans, we have to also submit to the state for review. We have both of our stamps on there. They have to have all of our calculations as part of that as well. So it is common to have that level of certainty.
I like the idea, Tony. I'll support you on that.
So I guess we're gonna need a straw vote. We have 2 yeses so far.
Well, okay, so we're asking about getting a state inspector from the DEI to put their stamp of approval on it.
I was thinking
But
of
Wayne
state
would,
inspector
Wayne
from-
would give us the stamp.
Well, they may request.
Yeah, a stamp, that they would say it's safe to be in there. And I mean, they may have certain other areas that, you know, there's, you know, public instructions and they look at other things.
Yeah. I guess I'd be okay with that. I think if Wayne, I think if we get just an official kind of summary letter from you, unless you, what did you say, Tim? You said your final report's gonna have your stamps
Well,
on
our
it?
set of drawings,
Set of
so
drawings.
our drawings have to go through the state, and that's all be certified as well.
I think maybe a summary of your findings and what you think that reflects in terms of the stability of the facility, at least for the next, 12 months, I think would be helpful in case the state, we get a state inspector that says, well, I need someone to sign off on this, and then we show them the letter.
Yeah.
Wayne,
That'd be perfect, yeah.
does that make sense? This is a new process to me that,
Yeah, we've done that before.
And I would think, since these issues have been identified, that there would be some latitude given to the district if there's no serious potential hazards. And that's all I'm looking for.
my one concern, I don't know if I would disagree with this if this happened, that I would take the state inspector's opinion, but is there a risk that someone comes in and overreacts and says, you cannot have school here all year?
For 350 kids, then we cancel school for the year. I don't know. I don't know, Doc, but if it's a hazard, we need to know.
Right. So, I mean, if they're right, and they feel like, and they disagree with Wayne and Tim, so we're getting a second opinion that's in disagreement that says this building is unsafe, and then we got a problem we got to deal with, because then we've got 2 conflicting expert opinions and risking finding school for a whole year plus for a bunch of kids. Now, I don't know who's got experience with how state inspectors handle these situations and whether they've been known to be conciliatory or deferent to, the experts that we're using, or...
I don't have enough experience.
I know, but I'm just kind of thinking through...
There's little consistency between inspectors.
Yeah,
Everyone
right.
has a different background, everyone has a different focus, everyone will pick up something different.
They won't have this information, or may not have that information if you send it to them, the borings and the studies, and you don't know if you're gonna get it, how complete it will be. What the
I'm just
background is.
looking, I only want to do it for the safety.
It's feel assured, yeah.
I feel assured. That's all, that's the only reason.
We always welcome second opinions.
Yep.
I don't
And
disagree with that at all.
and I'm sure, Kim or I, or both of us, will come down over the winter if something looks awry, if a crack looks bigger. I have no trouble driving down here and saying, all right, frost heave is causing some more movement, something's going on here. Recheck it.
this is something that's pretty standard to have done. I'm not opposed to it. If Mitch, if you, in your investigations, if you think that this is, if you were asked the DPI, if this seems like an appropriate situation to have a state inspection.
I guess I've not experienced that in the past, but just listening here, if they're gonna come and say, we'll get an engineer to come take a look at it, we have a structural engineer who's been on site multiple times, including last week after the shift, and so we have one opinion, and I guess I'm a little concerned about, too, what the DPI, if someone comes out and says, you can't have school there. We have somebody who says it's completely safe, and now we have somebody that says you can't have school. Whose authority rules the day? Wayne, can you tell me whose authority is going to rule the day then?
They're bigger than I am.
So now all of a sudden we are in that condition of, I have maybe started school, and all of a sudden now we have to find a home for 350 students and 50 teachers and staff members. And so, I mean, I will follow your wishes. If you wish for me to ask for this, well, I'll make it happen. You have a structural engineer that has had the background of our building, seen the building plans, been on site multiple times. The safety of everybody in that building is extremely important to me. And I don't know how many opinions we have to have, but I will do as you direct me.
I think that's really the question, Larry. If it is, do we trust this opinion in the room of the state of the facility, right? Because if we're bringing a state inspector and then they say, well, I need to see an expert's letter, and we give them Wayne's letter, then we're basically using an opinion we already trust to convince someone else. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think really the root of the decision we need to make here is, do we want a second opinion on the state of the facility as it currently stands?
Let me put it in a different way. If your dad says it's okay to drive 65 to 55, and a state trooper picks you up and says, well, my dad said it's okay, who's the ruling authority?
But your dad's not a state trooper.
Right. Right, but in that situation...
You know what I'm saying? We got to go with the ruling authority, and the state inspector is a ruling authority.
I hear you.
I would think.
I hear you.
Right.
But in that situation, the dad knows the rule, and he's bending the rule intentionally, and dad's wrong, right? So...
And we're all 100% okay with that. We're not wrong.
That's the question.
Right.
Right. So I think if we need more assurance, I don't think the key is get a state inspector. I think the key is get another structural engineer.
The state inspector is free.
Okay. I think the risk you take with a state inspector is that, they've got ties with the DPI to shut it all down. But maybe that's what we want.
Only if they don't want to shut our school down, only if there was clear evidence
I don't know.
of potential.
No,
I've dealt with the state.
I have too, and I've had some bad luck with the state, so they've completely made mistakes. And, I've not had good experiences with that.
These gentlemen are willing, you're both willing to sign it, stamp it, and everything. I mean, that puts their integrity, their life, their career on the line. I mean, essentially, if something happens.
Our professional line.
I mean, that puts everything on the line. And
Insurance for professional liability.
that's my thoughts on it. I mean, if they're willing to put everything on the line for that, then I trust their opinion. That's just me.
And you're willing to tell a mother that of a kindergarten.
Yeah, I have 2 children in that school, and, like I said, these gentlemen are putting their livelihood, their everything right there. I mean, to get another person, kind of like everybody's saying, that might be having a bad day and might say something else, and I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, we're kind of going around in circles. We're going to take a straw vote. So everybody can have their say, and we either move on, or we, with these gentlemen, or we bring the state in. So,
And the reason to bring the state in, Jeff, is just to assure us that the building is safe. That's the only
I
reason we bring the state in.
think, I don't have a problem with this, what the majority of the board wants to do,
Okay.
but I agree with what Aaron said. We're paying these two gentlemen a lot of money to do this, and it's like they're putting their necks on the line and their integrity, and I agree with what Nate said. It's like, hey, let's take a straw vote and then we can move on.
Okay.
Go ahead, call it.
Sure. Bush.
If I knew the state was gonna send us a structural engineer, I could go for it, but if they're gonna, we don't know who they're sending us, then that's, no.
Chambers.
No.
Dahl.
Better safe than sorry, yes.
Dunn.
I'm reassured by the opinions in the room, so I say no.
Lindsay.
No, I've had bad experiences with state inspectors where they've completely missed the points.
Steffes.
Again, with 100% certainty, I think the board is really missing it here. I vote yes, all day long, the safety of kids.
Basting.
I say no. Okay. Is there anything else?
Would you send a letter with your stamp then to me here at school so we have that on file? Thank you.
And we will get a letter from the insurance on file then.
I will ask John to send something to me, yes.
Anything else?
I can just go over maybe briefly, kind of where we're at in development if we do have a moment. So that was some of we just went over kind of the detail phase. It's also in the report. Just want to give a snapshot of where we're at in some of the site planning. We're currently doing the topographic study. We were out this week finishing some of the topography study. What that will really inform is what we can do in the entry plaza, some of the entry areas, some of the bus parking loops itself, how that all is really impacted as well as any potential properties that need to come within the conversation. The floor plan probably looks very similar to what it has been. It's a refinement, continual refinement of many conversations throughout here. One of the big things to note is within the first level, we moved the special ed from the second level to the first level into an unoccupied space that's now we're proposing to be occupied. We're adding a window within that space. What that really allows us to do is on the second level, there's 3 classrooms now that we can enlarge and be a more equal size. So all of the classrooms that we're planning are within that threshold of the square footage that we're looking at. So basically those 3 classrooms on the southern side, we're able to expand those like we're doing in the other classrooms. Still keeping the same configuration, still keeping them grouped together for adjacencies. Basically we went into, we just expanded it to be able to accomplish that. That was a result of many conversations with staff and the core team to really have that be part of the conversation, to give more equity of the different classroom sizes. To summarize some of the community members, I think that did go a long ways in the conversation as well. We were listening to what their concerns were, and we addressed a lot of them within there. Otherwise, we're starting to get our engineers on site. We're starting to get more and more information. We're starting to show some more 3-dimensional images of what this could look like. We're still talking about 2-story volume with daylighting from above through a translucent type of roof, really showing how volume can really open up this facility, really having that circular roof around the building. A lot of the same elements we've been talking about from the beginning. Daylighting is a very important part of this, making sure that we have adequate daylighting to the interior classrooms, so it really feels like they're exterior within the space. And then even opening up some views within the gym, really utilizing that volume, creating the library as a hub of the facility. Everything really circles around that space. So and then some potential views of what the library could look like. So on some of our tours, we saw a very similar conversation. We'll just opening that up and what, a little bit larger space, really having everything circle around the library, and then reconfiguring the library space to more of the classrooms themselves. We're starting to show some material conversations within there, maybe potentially bringing in some wood elements within there to soften it up a little less institutional as well. Any other questions?
Good work, Tim.
Can we get these two documents and?
Yeah, absolutely.
For
Nope.
computer version?
Send me an format. Thank you.
They're all good.
Regarding this topic, I've got a question for Joelle. When will you get the video out, Joelle? And the reason I ask is tomorrow night, meet your teacher leaders at the elementary school, so if any parents have a concern about their classroom, they can take a look at themselves.
The video will go up tomorrow, whether I have the article done, but the video is accessible from our homepage, even without the article. There's a YouTube link on there that they can just click on at the top
So-
right corner,
In the morning, it'll be available.
unless something goes wrong. But
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move on to
Appreciate
items
it.
for action. Exclusion of restraint report.
Yes, I'll turn this over to Angela Klein. Every year we have to report this out at the board level, so Angela?
So yeah, we have to report out physical restraint and seclusion by building level. So last year, there were 5 instances of physical restraint used at the elementary school. There was 1 student involved in all 5 cases. The student's not the student with special education needs. We have to identify that as well. Everybody involved, whoever was involved, there was always one person who was trained. So our school, actually myself and Justin Leonard are trained leaders of the Nonviolent Crisis Prevention Institute. So we actually train our staff following their program and protocol. So that's the intervention program that we use. So even last week we had 30 staff members that we trained across the district. And then there were no instances at the middle school or the high school.
Would somebody like to make a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any other questions for Angie? Let's go to question, please.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Basting.
Yes.
I would recommend we table this until closed session.
Okay, we'll table number 2 and move on to number 3, approval of educational technology budget.
One of the things that came out of the finance committee meeting was to come back with some budget requests. I had asked Dependable Solution, Rachel Thurn of Dependable. We have several smart boards that were originally purchased through grant monies that have kind of outlived their life, don't function correctly anymore, and kind of give me some things that need to be replaced. What needs to be replaced can be the highest priority. We have many smart boards in the district. Unfortunately, this scanned in backwards, but the request for replacement smart boards would come in at $46,604. They would replace the worst, oldest, most in need of updates for smart boards. We have, this is a Sharp TV in essence. We have some InFocus boards. InFocus is no longer a company that provides an alternative to this actual smart board. There is a Clever Touch is the name of a new company that does. We actually had people from Smart and Clever Touch out at the end of the school year last year, so staff members could see, get their hands on, interact with the boards. So this bid has a combination of Clever Touch and Smart boards to replace our most needed. Then the other area we're asking for is price quote on 150 Chromebooks. Chromebooks are used for state testing, and we have old enough Chromebooks that no longer support the testing package that kids have to get on to use. So we are in a need to replace machines of some sort so that our students can do the state testing. So the Ford exam is something that they do online, and we have to have machines. So originally, they gave me a quote, and the price quote was significantly higher than the number you see, the $38,584. Their distributor and Lenovo struck up a deal, and this is the most recent updated price quote at a substantially lower amount of money for the same number of Chromebooks. There was an agreement between Dependable, their distributor, and Lenovo, the maker of those Chromebooks. So that this price quote is actually, I want to say about $4,500 less than the original quote I'd had probably 2 weeks ago.
Mitch, I just have one question. Can you break down what is the cost per Chromebook then?
It would be $167.
Oh, is that?
It's on there. So you get a 4-year warranty. So if anything happens, because the first round of Chromebooks that we had, if a screen was broken, it was basically $25 for us to repair it. So we pay the $25 and fix the screen. Now it's part of that 4-year warranty. The second item is the management license. The 167 comes with, if this is the right information provided to me, comes with basically a case as well that protects the Chromebook, makes it a little bit more sturdy and provides protection.
Now, you were telling us about an event where a student went into the water and the computer or Chromebook got ruined. Is there insurance on these so that they're replaced?
We talked about having self-insurance in the past, a year ago, and that went nowhere. Dependable has done this with some other school districts, so I've asked them again to kind of come back and share with me the concept of self-insure, but again, it's one of those where the parent would have to, in essence, opt into the insurance to buy the insurance. And the cost of a Chromebook is significantly different than the cost of the MacBooks.
Oh, yeah.
How often do we typically replace these? When the warranty's out, or do we keep them for longer?
We try to keep them longer, and the Chromebooks that we have are longer. It's just that they don't support the testing software, the updates to access the testing software. They don't support that anymore, so our hands are tied on what we do next.
Is there like a trade-in or recycling type of deal where they take the old ones back and?
You can run a lease program that at the end of the lease they would take them back. I don't know, I'd asked Rachel, kind of given me that comparison, and they were fairly similar. You know, you're paying, if we pay $38,000 for 150, we might pay that, but we now pay it over 4 years. So that payment is smaller, but it's paid over 4 years as opposed to paying it all up front. The MacBooks are leased, and we have the opportunity to either purchase them when the lease is up or send them back. And we're talking as a building, because they're in the high school only, we were talking as a building. When that lease is up, is it wise to continue a lease, get another lease for MacBooks, or is it wise for us to go in a different direction? So it's a matter of, can you afford a bigger payment now and they're yours, or do you just spread that payment out over 4 years and it has an impact over 4 years worth of budgeting in the lease option?
So if we lease these for 4 years, it's the same price as buying them outright?
Virtually, yes.
Okay, and we probably could extend these longer than 4 years if we own them,
Yes,
barring any technology compatibility issues.
right. It might be 4 years from now, when the warranty is gone, you might have problems with 50 of them that might need to be updated. 50 are purchased instead of another 150. And again, it's not that the old ones don't work, it's their compatibility with the testing piece that there's just no updates. We can't do anything to the old Chromebooks. You can still turn them on, you can still use them to, surf the internet, do, things on Google. It's the testing piece that
I got it.
is our problem.
So do we plan on using the old Chromebooks since they still work?
We will use them to the best of our ability.
Okay, so there's not a plan to get rid of them, or there's no buyback program?
No.
like that? Okay, but we'll continue to have them in circulation until they stop working?
Correct.
Okay. And they're still supported by Dependable Solutions
To the best of their ability.
without warranty? but-
Yeah.
Okay.
How do schools test that can't afford all of the Chromebooks? What kind of
I
paper?
don't think there's any,
That there's
It
not,
wouldn't
you don't
necessarily
really
be.
have a choice.
it's just, this is.
There's
it's
some
crazy to
schools
me.
that still use, labs and whatnot, but
We just don't really take a class in.
it's really kind of a nightmare with scheduling and that when you're restricted to lab usage and that, so.
Do these make our kids smarter? Like, is it proven? I mean,
That they make them smarter, I don't think anything is proven to make
Have you
them
seen the 2-year-old
smarter.
work on iPad?
yeah, I have, it's pretty impressive, but they're not smarter. I don't know.
Is it Angry Birds or?
I don't know, it's just.
So those are two,
Is this in the budget?
based on the budget surplus, yes, the money is available based on the current budget surplus.
Yeah, that was my next question. It's in the budget. Okay, back to the smart boards.
Yes,
Those are in the budget as well?
based on the budget surplus. These items were not put in the budget and asking you to just approve the purchase. These items are being brought to you based on a budget surplus that we sit on right now.
Okay, as far as the smart boards go. Are these going to be used in the classroom by the teacher, or are they going to be used to show movies in the classroom by the teacher?
The smart boards are used by classroom teachers for
Academic
instruction, yes. And a lot of this first replacement are at the elementary school.
Okay. So I'm going to walk to the elementary school and I'm going to see them using them academically.
I would say yes.
You can learn a
I
lot
know,
from
I know
that.
first, my kids' teachers use them for workbooks, I know that. This is an obvious question, but these will transfer to the new classrooms post remodel.
Yes.
Okay. Now, and they have a 3-year warranty,
On the smart boards?
smart boards?
Yes.
Okay. But again, these are bought outright, so we would just kind of use them until they break?
Yes.
Past the warranty?
Yes.
Okay.
And in the past, it was a projector mounted in the ceiling, and projectors would die, the light bulbs would die, tend to lose touch sensitivity. We've gone away from a lot of the projectors now. There's a lot more that are basically like a TV screen, and it's all touch sensitive. So there's less parts to break. That doesn't mean they don't.
Is there any new smart boards that are not being used from the last purchase in storage, Mitch, by any chance?
I don't, Roger's gone now. I don't believe there are, because I think there's enough need that had we had something, we would have already swapped it out and put it in a classroom.
So what you have here, is there 14 new smart boards? Is that the way of reading this?
Yes, I believe that's right. That's that number.
These are in addition to the smart boards we already have, or?
These would be replacements.
Replacements.
Right. It's not 14 new classrooms. It's somebody's does not work, does not function properly, and and needs to be replaced. So we would take the old one down and get rid of those and put this new one in its place.
Do you know, Mitch, how many we have throughout the whole district, smart boards?
Just about one in every classroom, I would
There's
say.
very
So-
few classrooms without one.
That was my question too. What percentage of our total smart boards is this purchase approximately?
I
Are
would,
we replacing half the fleet?
I would say it's probably closer to a third.
Okay.
Because Rachel had come to me with, here's the fiscal conservative me, she came to me with a 3-year plan, let's replace this many this year, this many I recommend for next year, and this many the year after. And my comeback to that was, tell me what I have to replace this year, and I'm gonna try to make the rest of them last. If I can get 2 more years out of them before we have to come back, then I'm gonna try to get 2 more years out of them. You know, if they fail, they fail, but my hope is that we don't have to come back and ask for this same quantity. Hopefully it's, these 2 failed, so I'm coming back asking to replace 2, and 2, you know, in another year. I want to get as much life out of them as I possibly can.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure for this technology.
You're thinking ordering these right away, Mitch, and get them
You
installed?
want a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Get them installed first semester-ish?
Yes.
Okay.
The sooner I can get them, especially the Chromebooks, the sooner I can get them ordered, the more likely they'll have them in stock. There were some scares in tariffs and whether or not equipment would be available and things like that. And I had already spoken to, Dependable can hang the smart boards, that can be kind of labor intensive, but we have our own in-house expert. Once the school year starts, there's an in-house expert in both buildings that also has another full-time job. So I've already been talking to Roger about ways we might be able to work with some work schedules to allow either Steve at the elementary or Alf at this building to install them. You know, maybe it's one a day overtime or one a week overtime, but to get them in place, smart boards in place as soon as possible. The Chromebooks, once they're here, Dependable would have to install all the proper software and make sure that they attach to the right network and get them out, but they would be able to do that as quickly as possible.
I do have a question on the Chromebooks. So with, most of the high school kids have MacBooks, correct, Mitch?
Yep.
We cannot use them to do this testing on?
Yes, they can.
They can?
They're
Yes.
taking their own testing.
Yep.
Freshmen
But I
and
have,
sophomores
I have middle
have their own
school,
test.
I have middle school and elementary school students that, you know, the testing is 3 through 8. So the 150 Chromebooks would be divided between the middle school and the elementary school.
Then what do we have in middle school? Do we have MacBooks or Chromebooks currently?
Chromebooks.
Chromebooks.
Yeah.
All right. And how many of them roughly do we have?
In the elementary, or in the middle school?
I mean, is it 6 through 8?
Yes,
One?
but they don't have necessarily one-to-one, like the high school students have their own. There are carts of Chromebooks that they wheel around to different classrooms to use. There's enough, I think there's 3 carts, maybe 4 carts downstairs.
And I think each cart has 30. So they share them amongst the middle school between the classrooms.
I think the reason I was asking Angela and Mitch, maybe you can help me out too, when we went to the MacBooks for the high school kids, that was really well received.
Yep.
And I know there's more money, but would it be better to spend $40,000 on MacBooks than 39 on Chromebooks?
I think educationally, for what we're asking middle school students to do on a computer, they really just need a Google Suite, and a Chromebook supports that enough, where in high school, when you start throwing in media, music composition, and some of the other coursework that we have, that's better supported on a Mac program. But I think for what we ask junior high students to do with their technology, it's Chromebooks are appropriate.
It's a fifth of the cost per unit. So you pay 40,000 for MacBooks, you're gonna get a fifth the amount of computers. That's the problem.
I think when you start getting into high school, when you start looking at the electives, like, you know, our choir kids write music. You need a program on Mac in order to be able to do that. It's not supported on other things. I'm sure some of the tech ed programs are probably more Mac specific than what could be done on a PC, so. And I think they're probably looking at what they're using them for.
Okay. Angie, just call a question, please.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Batson.
Yes. Establishment of board goals.
This came out also kind of from the Finance Committee meeting. Discussion around the budget surplus. And there will still be surplus money after these two technology purchases. And looking at setting board goals, which would help direct how some of this budget surplus, some of the remainder of the budget surplus money be spent. You know, how you want it to help maybe drive some of the decision-making that takes place. So Andy is the lone survivor from the last strategic planning meeting as the only board member. Julie Stevenson was part of that as a board representative, and Kelly was part of the last strategic planning meetings. And these were two strategy areas that came out of that particular plan. Strategy 1, academic innovation independence. A lot of things we are continuing to work on, and things that you have approved moving into this particular school year that fit into some of the media literacies, some of measuring, focus on engagement, inclusivity, the whole child. These are these programs that we have. Looking at Future Ready, you approved Project Lead the Way in the middle school. Chuck Spent, 50% teacher. He teaches our Project Lead the Way courses in the middle school in the afternoons as electives for students. Monitoring how our students do, some of the things that indicate whether students are future ready. I know there's been several of these conversations that have happened at school board meetings. I have put together some of this information from previous years. I asked Matt to look at the last school year that we just came through and add to that so we can share that information out around the grades, percentages, so on, so forth, as to how our students are doing. And then strategy 2 deals with community engagement, build trust, connect families and schools, connecting community in the schools, community in the board, and community in the students. And there are things that we are working on currently. I would certainly say some of our cleanup days. We had the first ever, now the words escape me, the day we had in the spring there where we had people coming in and speaking to us, awareness day. Social awareness day. There were a lot of community members that came in. So we're trying to make inroads into some of these areas of connecting our school to the community. So I threw those out for you to look at. So as you look at maybe developing goals, and I know some of those goals were maybe where do we want to see money directed to support education, to support that connection. So I gave this out as maybe a starting point to look at discussions around directions that you might want to go, trying to establish some goals.
If I could make a suggestion, I know this may feel tedious, but it is our strategic plan. This is the beginning of the school year. I would like to just walk through this and just say, are we doing this? Have we done it? Do we plan on doing it? And see where our gaps are in terms of the strategic plan itself. And then we can see where our gaps are, and then we can maybe pick a view those as, or use those to maybe inspire some goals for the year, or maybe some budget priorities. I would be fine with a special meeting. I don't know, I don't think it would take too long to go through the plan itself and see what we are doing and aren't doing.
Was this part of the thing where we did the retreat of the board?
We can go through it. I got us back by 5:30 in the morning.
I'm not in the long meeting fan club, but I think this is time well spent.
I agree. And maybe we could break it up into a couple different meetings if we wanted to do it at a regular meeting.
I want to say that this was maybe 3 years ago now.
Fall of 2017 is when we made this.
Okay, so, and so this was board members, community members, administrators, staff members that were brought together to, they kind of looked at the first strategic plan that we had. Where are we, what have we done, and then they crafted this one. So this wasn't just board input on this.
But I was thinking that, didn't you do a retreat down at the Walker House? Just the board with this
Yeah.
to discuss? I mean, we got a lot done in that.
And built some goals and ideas
Yeah.
around.
I mean, the community and everybody did this part, but
Correct.
then we did it as a group away from a meeting.
Yes.
And that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think have a special meeting and go over this as a group.
Well, I think we could do it the same way we did at the Walker House.
We just post it as a kind of a working session. It's not, wouldn't necessarily be an official board meeting, but you can post it that you're going to be there.
It was posted as a retreat.
Yeah, we posted as a retreat.
So that's something you could certainly do.
And then maybe we could start 5:15, 5:30. Are you done most days by that?
I can be there for this meeting.
Because then we could just do a meal or whatever like we did at that time.
Yep.
That would be my suggestion.
We need to vote on that,
Yeah, let's, does somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
I so move what Jeff said.
What, Jeff?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
The official record.
Making a working session at the undisclosed place then, or?
No, it would be an open meeting. It'd have to be an open.
It would be
No,
posted.
it wasn't an open meeting, it was just.
I know, but.
Because you're all getting together, it would be posted as a retreat.
Right.
So we can.
People could attend it from the public.
Anybody wanted to come watch us.
Yeah. I think technically that's
Motion.
true, isn't it, right?
Anybody want to
Yeah.
second it?
I'll second.
Any other comments?
I think what would be helpful in preparation for that meeting is, you did a great job of kind of more of what I'm looking for, is you kind of went through it, Mitch, just real quickly. You said, we're doing this, 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 and this. And that's kind of what I would like to see as a starting point for the plan, highlight, because I don't know everything we're doing in the school,
Right.
I know I'm saying that on the record here, but, I mean, and you guys highlight all the cool stuff you're doing all the time, and,
That's a great idea.
but just showing, like, for example, the 3 newest literacies, media, global, and digital. I mean, there's some really cool stuff you guys are doing right now with multimedia that I just heard about,
Right.
But even more importantly, like, on page 2, where it talks about the career readiness criteria, the college readiness criteria.
Yep.
In my opinion, I'd like to see what every high school student is doing according to all this criteria. How each student is college or career ready. So that we can know which kids are not ready and which kids are ready. And you said you're kind of getting reports. I mean, I think a general start of
I don't know that I
students
could.
we have.
I don't know that I could say, well, I can tell you, Aaron Dunn is only hitting 2 out of these 3 indicators.
Yeah.
I can tell you based on what I was tasked with putting together priors, I can say 57% of our freshmen are on target with this. So-
And I think that's fine if you share that, 57% with the board.
Yeah.
But I think as a institution that has a responsibility, each student, you know, somewhere you should have a file that said Aaron Dunn is not meeting all the criteria for being career ready.
Well, I think.
Well, I think there's some privacy issues there.
Right, but you have that.
And I think that's up to them to bring them to the office
Right,
and say,
I think
hey,
you probably-
here's the issue. I'm not sure we can look at each student.
I didn't mean that.
I thought you did.
No, what I meant was, do we have that, are we tracking that for each student? And is that something we're using to guide
Yes, I can say yes to that.
towards graduation?
I think Aaron was saying Mitch or Andy should have that.
Oh,
available
okay.
to- not-
Yeah, because I thought, if we're gonna look at them each individually, I think that's
Right.
violation.
I
of
understand,
rights.
I misspoke, that's what you heard, but I would like exactly like a summary of
Yeah, that we can
how
provide.
many students you have that are meeting these, that kind of thing, if that's what you're planning on doing.
I'd like to add one other thing too. It's interesting, I've had 5 graduate from here and go to college, and then they've told me individually what they lacked and didn't get here, that they felt they weren't prepared for in college. I think we ought to check with some graduates, recent graduates, say, hey, you've done 1, 2, 3, whatever number of years in school, and what do you feel was lacking in your preparation? And I think you'll be surprised.
And what was great.
And what was good, they also talked about what was really good too. Yeah, they went well. I think you'll find that interesting.
I can also, kind of along that same pathway, we've had multiple students come back and say, why didn't you make me?
Yeah.
Or had I listened when you tried to tell me this? There's been many students that have come back and said that.
Sure.
We've even had students that are seniors in high school say, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z when I was a freshman and you were telling me about this, and now here I am 4 years later and I regret not doing that. And we have said multiple times, we want you to go talk to our freshmen, because they won't listen to us because we're the adult, but they're going to listen to you as another student. So we are trying to tap into some of those things as well, but we can certainly get, some of those grad surveys, some of those grad reports as to what was missing or whatever. We can
And
certainly look
maybe
into that.
that'd be a goal to have some of the grads that are in school come back and talk to the freshmen or sophomores and say, hey guys, these are some things you really been told you should do, and you should do this.
Sounds like we got a heck of a start to our retreat.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's call a question, please.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Batson.
So would you like me to wait till the fair is over to try to schedule something, but as soon as we can get into it in September here?
When do we have to finalize the budget?
End of October.
End of October? So I think if we have something in clear picture by the time we finalize the budget, I think that would be good.
Okay, let's move on to employee services. Staff hire.
We are recommending the hire of Gina Reichling to 1.0 FTE elementary position as an instructional assistant. We have interviewed, offered 3, and we had one we knew we couldn't afford based on the current position, they would be leaving. One that was considering it and ended up turning us down. So I don't have any others for tonight's board meeting to recommend. We have an accepted offer for someone that we will begin the school year basically as a sub, and I will bring that recommendation to the September board meeting. And we were looking for 3. We believe that there is enough supervision and schedule adjustments that can be made that we might not need that 3rd assistant now. So I have 1. Remember I said we were going to post 3 and you had given me permission to post 3. Here's one of those 3. The second one will be coming at the September board meeting.
And it's going to be 2 at the high school level and 1 at the elementary level?
Yes,
Okay,
the one at this one is the elementary.
okay.
The recommendation will come in September will be a one-on-one aide in the high school.
I make a motion, we hire Gina Reichling as an instructional assistant.
Second.
Any other discussion? Question, please, Angie.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Approval of staff resignation.
I shared with everyone, Diane Reichling, assistant bookkeeper, approached me. She actually, today was her first day starting her class in medical coding down at Southwest Tech. She's got class 2 days a week. Looking for a transition. A lot of things that it was a difficult decision for her to make. But I think probably it's in the best interest for her, her family, and all involved. And I would recommend that we approve the resignation. Diane's been a great employee and very helpful in her time here 7 years ago. That's when she first started. But she has a desire to follow a different path at this point.
I move that we regretfully approve the resignation from Diane Reichman.
Second.
Any other comments? Let's call a question, Angie, please.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Abstain.
Chambers,
Yes.
Basting.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to business services. The card and those payables, and I'd like to make a motion.
Move that we pay the credit card and statements and approve of bills.
I'll second it.
Any questions, any comments?
I just had one, I'm trying to find it here, there was one that the notes stated was paid for by Matt's district credit card in August, so I was curious if we were attempting to pay for something twice, or if that didn't occur. Learning A to Z, page 6 of the first payable report. The note just, it's a $200 renewal. It said ordered online, 8819, paid with Matt Renwick's school credit card.
Are you asking what Learning A to Z is?
I'm asking if he paid for the school credit card while we're approving.
I ordered that.
Okay.
And I do believe that I did play with Matt's school credit card, so it should not be,
So we'll approve it next month when it shows up on the page.
I would look into it further. But I do believe I did put it on his credit card, so it should not be paid today.
And that's just, I want to clarify that we don't also write them a check.
Anybody else?
I think the original motion with the exception, Andy just.
Did you hear that, Angie? Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, question, please.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Basting.
Abstain. Okay, we want to make a motion to go to closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Larry.
Are we keeping the chase with
Dahl,
us?
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Chambers.
Yes.
Basting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.